We know that stories have chemistry. So let's see what happens when we combine the chemistry of three seemingly disparate stories. The first is that story of the young being who was a seeker after truth and enlightenment. And he participated in the practices of several persuasions. He went to encounter groups. He listened to the dissertations of learned masters. But he felt that he lacked discipline. And he'd heard that Zen was very strict. So he sought out a Zen establishment with the resolve that he would follow the rules to the very last degree. And of course, when he entered that establishment, there were a set of rules. Get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and present yourself at the meditation hall. Be at the kitchen at a certain time to do your kitchen duty. Be at the meditation hall to listen to the learned discourses. And he had that resolve that he was going to do it to the best of his ability. So he diligently got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He presented himself at the kitchen and stirred the rice, and he's at the meditation hall to listen to the discourses. But he noticed that a lot of the others who were there, they slept in the morning, they went to sleep during the discourses, they didn't turn up in the kitchen to stir the rice when it was their duty to do so. So he got very angry. I'll show them, I'll show them. So he was even more diligent in what he was doing, up at 5 o'clock, presenting himself at the meditation hall and so forth, and so on. But then one day, the abbot of that establishment was passing as he was sweeping the floor. And he said, I see that you're not happy. What is it that is troubling you? And the young man said, well, I notice that nobody takes any notice of the rules here, so I'm being an example of what it is to follow the rules. And the old abbot feigned anger, and he said, what you're being an example of is living and working with frustration and anger, and that's no example at all. So very, very chastened, the young man said, well, how should it be? And the abbot said, when the Buddha takes the Buddha broom and sweeps the Buddha floor and stirs the Buddha rice, then and only then can we be an example to others. And then there's that story about the time when the mullah's wife was pregnant and needed a new kaftan. So he took her off to the shop that had a display of kaftans, and she chose one that suited her very well and began to haggle with the storekeeper about the price. And the storekeeper was taking a very hard bargain, so that mullah's wife finally said, no, it's too expensive, I'm not going to buy it. And she started to walk out of the shop with the mullah. But then the shopkeeper noticed that she was pregnant and ran after them down the street, accosted the mullah and said, Mullah, please, please, please have your wife buy my kaftan, because I know that when a woman is pregnant and when she doesn't get what she wants, she puts the evil eye on you. So the mullah looked at the storekeeper and said, oh, you stupid fellow, you know very well that's just a silly superstition. Yes, 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 I know, but just in case, will you please have your wife buy this kaftan? And then there's a story about a very poor man. He worked very hard for a few pennies and saved his money until he had a little bagful, which he gave to a certain trader who promised him that he would invest it and have interest on this money, so it would be increased. Well, he was a simple man by the name of Azali, and trusting the man, he gave over all his savings, years of savings, to this man. But when it came time for him to reclaim his money, when he went to him, he said, "You, never seen you before in my life. What are you talking about money? You've never given me any money." Well, poor Azali was absolutely shattered by this. His life savings gone. And he, being a simple man, he had not asked for a receipt. He had no witness there to witness what had gone on. But in his desperation, he went up to his rooftop, and he stood on the rooftop. He shouted, "God, please, please, I have no recourse. Would you help me to regain my savings? I need them." And as it so happened, a dervish was passing by. Now this dervish was a very ferocious fellow, or so it appeared. Had big bushy black eyebrows and piercing black eyes, long black beard, and a stance that denoted some power that was really frightening to most people, including Azali. He saw this man and immediately began to quake in his boots, thinking that he was going to put the evil eye on him. But the dervish said, "I heard your plea, and it's very timely, because I can help you with your dilemma." Azali was very afraid, but they parted. And it happened not long after that Azali was standing outside the shop of this man who had taken his money, dejected, wondering how it was that he was going to recoup his life savings, when the dervish came walking down the street and said, "Oh, Azali, I'm so glad to meet you. I've decided to give you my secret teachings. You come to my house tonight, and I will inform you of the deep and mystical teachings of my order." Now, as it happened, the storekeeper had heard what was going on and came out and saw and heard this interchange between Azali and the dervish. A few days later, the dervish met Azali and said, "Well, how much did he give you?" And Azali said, "Well, he gave me 5 times the money that I'd given to him." "Oh," said the dervish. And the dervish added a little completion to that interchange. So the question that arises not only is, what is it that's evoked when we add the chemistry of these 3 little stories together and give us perhaps an answer or a suggestion of what it is, in summation, that the dervish said to Asli. Bringing these three anecdotes together in the form of the answer that completes the interchange between this dervish and the poor man. What is it that arises in you? What did the dervish say to the poor man? Where do they meet in us, these stories? Where is it that their chemistry combines, like the experiences of life, the sensory experiences? The physical touch, the verbal interchange, the inner awareness, the chemistry of life's experiences. Like the stories. In the way of experiences of life, as with the stories, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
It's almost like a deserving, like when you give something, it will come back somehow. Like a flow.
Yes. Always from those three, all the experiences, all the interactions, like stories.
All three have massive emotional responses that aren't necessary.
Okay.
Even though the outcomes are different, people are dumping their emotions on each other and